I'd welcome all. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Town of East Bridgewater Planning Board. It's, I got 7:07 PM. Monday evening, June 6th, 2022. Currently present for the board are myself, Roy Gardner, members Christine Hanley, John Lawler, Sherry Bates, Rob Ken, and Kevin Riley. First item of business is the minutes of May 16th, 2022. What's your pleasure with those minutes?
Move to waive formal a reading of the minutes of meeting of May 16th, 2022, and approve the draft as most recently circulated.
Okay, that's a motion. Riley, do you have a second?
Second?
Second, Ken. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll show that as unanimous vote, 6 in favor, none opposed. Christine, could you autograph that if you would? Next item on the agenda is a special permit public hearing scheduled to start at 7:15. In their wisdom, we're not allowed to, under Mass General laws, the wisdom of the law says we can't start a meeting, or I'm sorry, a public hearing prior to the posted time of that public hearing. So at this time, I think I'll see if the board wants to open the nominations for the board membership, clerk, vice chairman, and chairman for, I guess we'll call it fiscal year 2023, because we always have the re-election of officers of the board after the town election, when we have as close as we're going to get to a full quorum present, and I think probably tonight is that night. There's 6 of us here tonight, so. So we usually start from the clerk and work up. So we have nominations for clerk.
Madam Clerk, are you interested in continuing on?
I can continue on.
Move to appoint Christine Hanley as clerk for the coming year.
We have a second to that motion.
Second?
So that's a motion. Riley, second. Ken, further discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So we'll show that as in 6 in favor, none opposed. So Christine Hanley is our clerk for the next year until 2023, after 2023 annual town election when we reorganize again. I'm going to make a motion to nominate Kevin Riley as vice chairman.
Second? Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll show that as 6 in favor, none opposed.
Move to appoint Roy Gardner as chairman of the board for the coming year.
Second.
So that's a motion. Riley, second Lawler. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
We'll again show that as 6 in favor, none opposed. That's unanimous vote of the members present and voting. And I thank you all for your support. Also like to congratulate the new vice chair.
Thank you.
Also newly elected this year as a regular member, so congratulations on both of those,
Up
Kevin.
associate, this is a good thing.
If possible, I think Dot Simpson is going to try and get that printed up so that we're able to sign that, because we need to have signatures on that, because it needs to get recorded. That document listing out the offices at both the Registry of Deeds and at the Land Court in Plymouth. So additionally, there's a couple other things we normally do at this time as well. One of those is to authorize the chairman and the vice chairman to sign Form A plans, approval not required plans, in a case in which it based on the filing date, would be outside the meeting date and the required filing timelines from filing to when we need to approve those plans or act on those plans, which is 21 days. There will be timelines where we don't have a meeting in a 21-day period during the summer and/or when a meeting gets canceled or there's a holiday during a month and we only have one meeting. So every year, we also authorize and also notify both Plymouth County Registry of Deeds as well as the Land Court that the chairman and vice chairman is authorized to sign Form A plans outside of a meeting with a single signature.
Does that come with additional compensation?
Yes,
I think it's twice what you get.
twice. It doubles
Everlasting thanks.
your- Doubles your salary.
Lasting thanks, that's even better.
So if we can have a motion to so also notify as part of our notification to the Registry of Deeds and the Land Court on the approval of Form A plans.
So moved.
So that's a motion, Ken. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion, Ken, we're going to say Christine, I think slightly earlier, has the second. Any further
Sure.
discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, thank you all. So I think that should take care of the reorganization. I think those are the two things we need to do, Dot, right?
Yes.
Kevin, if you get flowers at your house, it's from Eddie O'Leary. Might be anonymous, but
Okay, next item on the agenda, which we're coming up on in just a minute or so, we'll wait just a brief second or two, and we're gonna have Christine read the legal ad. Our clerk read the legal ad before we actually open the public hearing, so we can read the legal ad at this point, and I'll officially open the public hearing when she's done reading the legal ad.
I'm okay to read it now.
Yes.
Okay. Town of East Bridgewater Planning Board, notice of public hearing. The Planning Board of the Town of East Bridgewater will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 6th, 2022, at 7:15 PM at the Town Office Building, 175 Central Street, second floor conference room. The purpose of the hearing will be to review a special permit modification. The application and plans have been submitted by PMA Real Estate Management LLC, doing business as Tri-Town Convenience, owner applicant, and prepared by Outback Engineering, Inc. The application is for an auto sales operation, which will provide 4 parking spaces, 2 spaces for used vehicles, and 2 spaces for customer parking. This modification will also include a sales office. The subject property is located at 60 Franklin Street, consisting of approximately 2.735 acres of land, at 25 Industrial Drive, consisting of approximately 1.61 acres of land. The zoning district is industrial, and the parcel is shown on East Bridgewater Assessor's Map 95, Lot 224. The planning board pursuant to Section 5.K2E and Section 13 Site Plan Approval of the Town of East Bridgewater zoning bylaw and Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 11, seeks public input relative to this proposed auto sale operation request. The plans are on file with the Planning Building Department and can be reviewed between the hours of 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Thursday, and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon. The notice published in the Enterprise on Monday, May 22nd, 2022, and Monday, May 29th, 2022.
All right, thank you, Christine. I'm going to declare the public hearing open at this time. It is 7:15 PM. We have a representative from the applicant present. I believe a representative from Outback is here.
Yes, sir. Kyle Dominish, Back Engineering. Gonna wait for the plan to come up. But, so what the our applicant
Yeah.
is proposing is a modification to this special permit that is currently on the site. There was a pizza shop in the convenience store. They kind of shared the space. And if you see that leader that is right under the square footage under convenience store, that's kind of the pizza shop area, kind of the back corner of that. The rear of the building is a service area, has some large garage bay doors and a small office in the back left corner of the overall building. The service, the entity that is renting the service area is no longer going to be there, and the auto sales operation will be based in there in the office. I've color coded some parking just to kind of denote what parking goes where, for the multiple uses. In the front portion of the building by the gas canopy, there is a drive-through Honeydew, which has 2 seats, I believe it was. So they have that one pink or salmon-colored parking space, which leads directly into the convenience store. There is a door on that corner, and the tan or yellowish parking spaces is generally for the convenience store, kind of all around the building. And the blue is the proposed 4 spaces for the auto sales operation, which 2 of which would be for sale vehicles, and the other 2 would be for accessing those vehicles. The purpose of this operation is not to have vehicles there constantly. It's for a specific vehicle, a specific time for a specific owner, or sorry, a specific buyer, and a place to do business, which isn't at somebody's private home or another place. So it's more of like a central meeting area, and they're going to utilize the office to do the any paperwork they need to, and kind of clean the cars up, get them ready for sale and ready for someone to come look at them, which isn't going to be much because it's going to be worked out prior anyway, because they're specific vehicles, and it's not like just storing vehicles there where someone can pull up and any vehicle they want. That's basically my gist. Pretty simple. It was more of just reworking areas inside the building of the uses, and we're going to stripe 2 additional spaces over by the gas covers, which are over by the existing to the south gas pump and canopy. The text is bolder, and there's 2 liters coming off of it. So those will be, there's already a row of parking there, so it'll just be additional striping. I know we met informally with the, I forget the name, the track meeting, yes, sorry, thank you. And I know there was concern about question about the location of the accessible spaces. That is where they are located now, and that is where the striped section between the accessible spaces, there is a tip-down ramp to get onto the walkways. And there is a door on that corner, the front right corner of the building, as we look at it here. It's not a perfect location for the accessible spaces because it's not as close as it could be, but it is existing, and we don't propose changing it. I'd like to open up to any questions that you may have.
So question number 1, I think, is who's actually going to apply for the license through the Board of Selectmen for the used car sales?
It is, I have the application. It's already been made, and that's why we're here. V12 Ventures LLC is the name of the company.
Is that the
And
owner of the parcel?
it is not. I believe it's an entity of the parcel.
The owner of the parcel is PMA Real Estate
Yeah,
Management
PMA.
LLC.
Yep.
So who's going to be running the, I believe what you said is in the beginning part of the presentation, that the existing auto service area is vacant, and the people that were previously using that are no longer using that. There's going to be a new, are they the same people that are going to be doing cars?
It's a different,
Okay.
and it's not going to be any service in there. It's going to be
So,
storage.
so if I understood correctly, and I think I heard part of this at our previous meeting, what this really is a buyer for exclusive vehicles that he's buying specifically for someone who wants that vehicle.
Yes.
And he needs a physical location with a physical address to be able to get a used car license from the Board of Selectmen,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. So the expectation isn't that there's gonna be used cars out there all the time. He's gonna use that used car license to be able to either bid or buy them through as required by the state.
I believe so,
To buy and
yeah.
sell, have a legal license with a legal address.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
What's the means of access and egress to the office?
The office is in the back left corner. And there is, I'm trying to see.
Because the door here.
Yeah, there's a door right there. So you'd just be going in there. And that, we had proposed, or we had thought about putting the parking spaces over by the existing gas pumps, where the diesel trucks fill up, which is to the south. And we kind of rearranged the thinking so that it was a direct access.
Is there access to the sales office through the garage?
I believe so.
There was a side door in the building there. There was an electrical supply company that was there
Yep.
some time ago now, but
Yeah, I believe so. You can access through the garage bays, and then you can also access through an exterior door.
yeah, there's
On
at
the
least
face
one
of it.
exterior door that's behind the,
My feeling with that is that should not be a permitted means of access, perhaps egress only in the event of an emergency, but certainly not access because you're crossing an active drive-through lane that's built out there. So if you want to, access from within the garage, so be it. But I don't think people should be strolling on through across the drive-through lane to get in there.
There are stop signs there too, or stop lines.
are there any other questions from the
Will
board?
the bays be used to work on the vehicles?
No.
What are the bays?
Storage and, I mean, I think it's even
Is
being
it
used
part
for
of that
storage.
use, or is it?
It is part of the use, but it's not, there's not gonna be any, they might clean it up, get it, detail it maybe.
Okay, so
kinda
they
clean
will
the
be
inside.
bringing vehicles inside?
Yeah, but they're not gonna be working on them, there's not gonna be any fluids or fluid changeover or,
Are these consignment vehicles? Are they, somebody owns them, they're consigning them, is that the deal?
I don't believe so. I think it's more of a purchase, they have a client that wants some specific vehicle, they go get it.
Right,
And
they go out and buy it?
then sell it again.
So if I look at that plan and I look at the division within the building, the dividing line right there, yeah. What we're saying is that the entire area to the left or rear of that building is going to be devoted to this use, and there will be no other tenant in that area. Yes?
What percentage of the building will be for that use?
It's 35 and 26
6?
or something, so a little less than half.
Roy, was 25 part of the original special permit, 25 Industrial Drive? So I'm wondering why it's included in this application.
Twenty-five is the property to the rear.
Separate assessors parcels, got nothing to do with nothing here, I don't
Yeah,
think, right?
It's a different ownership too, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's actually not on the application itself. We're describing 60 Franklin Street specifically. Yeah, so it is just the front. And that's how we did our butters as well. It's just directly from 60.
I'm not sure why they put in the advertisement either, actually.
Oh, I see it in the advertisement there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause 25 Industrial Drive's not owned by the same owner. It may have at one point, but it isn't now, because the ownership of,
On the plan.
Yeah, it is on, I mean, it's labeled on the plan, but it's just not labeling.
Yeah, it's the
lot, abutter.
that's the abutter.
So is the person who signed the application the owner of the property, or is it the tenant? The George Peter,
Owner.
that's the owner of the property?
Well,
That's PMA Real Estate
let's-
Management?
Or
let's be a little careful with terms here, so. The actual owner of the property under real estate law is PMA Real Estate Management LLC.
Yeah, he's signing on behalf of that owner.
Asiotos is someone related to those that has the legal authority to sign for that owner. Now, what we typically do is we make sure that whoever signs that, their name is extremely clear and readable. That's why that's one of the reasons we had to get a second version of the application file, because the original version of the application was missing some information, including who signed it. There was just some scribble on it. You would have no way of knowing whose signature it was, so. We asked them to update the application and fix at least, I think it was 4 things, one of which was we needed to have a name next to the signature that was readable with who he is. So typically what we do is we assume that he's either the owner or agent for the owner. Agent for the owner under real estate laws, we were advised some 25 years ago, could be a whole bunch of different things. It couldn't be someone who's got a purchase and sale agreement to buy the property. Could be one of the principals in the LLC. It could be a property manager that the LLC has hired to run the business. But in any case, we know who that is, and
I shall.
I believe he is one of the principals in PMA Real Estate Management, although I have no way to know that for sure. We're always free as a board, if we're not sure who signed it, we're always free to ask them to identify themselves further in their relation to the property, although we very rarely do that. We've never had a situation where someone who filed for an application before the board, we found out later, had no legal authority to do that, so as long as we know the name, we're usually satisfied with that, so. So I have a question to ask Kevin, and normally in something like this where there's not a clear, quote, used car business as the primary business, we would make that license non-transferable, so they couldn't sell it to some other third party. So we don't directly control the license, but we do control the special permit for the use, so I'm not sure whether, and this is thought for the whole board, but whether or not we should be conditioning the approval as part of this special permit to run contingent on a valid license being issued and maintained through the Board of Selectmen's office.
By this applicant, too.
That would make sense, I think, right? Because you don't have a legal special permit use, which is to sell used cars without that license in Massachusetts. Any other questions by anybody?
No.
So 2 of the spaces are gonna be used for parking the cars, right?
Yes.
So that takes away 2 spaces that would be, required as part of the permit, right? Because you're gonna be using those spaces for merchandise and not for parking. Given that it doesn't look like, it looks like we might be 1 space short.
Well, those cars, it's not like those cars are there all the time. They're gonna
Well,
arrive.
we don't know that.
That's true.
We're conditioning an approval so that you could go and sell in those spots,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
As a retail spot
Mhm.
on the premises, so people need to have proper, safe access to it.
Yep.
And it should be excluded from the overall parking count of what is, to be compliant with our regulations, I would assume. And I would agree with Mr. Riley about the access needing to go through those drive lanes in order to access that location.
Yep.
Anybody else? Anyone here in the room have any questions? All right, I guess at this point, we can accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion.
So we got a motion, Lawler, do we have a second?
Second?
Second, Ken, to close the public hearing. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll show that as 6 in favor, none opposed, to close the public hearing, and we'll declare the public hearing closed at 7:33 PM. Thank you. I expect before the end of the meeting tonight, we'll take a vote, and that shouldn't be too long from now, because we got a short agenda tonight, so you're welcome to stay if you wish for when we get to that point.
So I can report back. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Tower Heights discussion. Patrick, you're welcome to come up to the front table if you would like. So some quick background here. Tower Heights is I'm going to guess a little bit like the 6th or 7th phase of the entire Tower Heights subdivision that started many, many years ago, back in the mid-'80s. Has been ongoing ever since, usually in chunks of somewhere between 8 to 10 houses at a time, sometimes a few less than that, sometimes more than that. So the current extension of Tower Heights hit us within a week or two when our engineer resigned previously, so the reviewing engineer at that point, we hired a third, no, actually, we didn't, because we had a bad experience by that time, so what we did is we authorized Allen and Major, who was doing the review of everything for Concom, to do the review for us, because Concom was already reviewing part of the drainage in the area, so they did the entire review. Since that point in time, we've hired our own environmental partners as a regular engineer. So several issues here. Number one, environmental partners didn't do the review, so they don't have the reviewed plans with their notes on them and all that, and have people on staff who've seen the subdivision. Number two is Allen and Major is no longer doing work for the town, since we've, using the formal hiring process, have hired environmental partners to be doing that work. So a suggestion was made from several parties involved, including the DPW, and Rob is certainly here to if he feels free to comment further on this, but PMP Associates, who did the plans and actually do reviews for several towns in the area for subdivision construction, have offered to self-certify the construction work at this subdivision with regular reports to the board, along with, I'm assuming, the same things that would happen when we have our consultant doing the work. Mark prints if necessary, if they have to change something, if they find something during the construction that they need to modify, tweak elevations or drainage, whatever. So we actually discussed this at the track meeting last Wednesday. The building commissioner was on board doing that, as well as the rest of the track group at that point felt for this particular subdivision, given the engineering firm that was doing the work, that as a whole, we would feel comfortable doing that. I also felt comfortable doing that. But we would have to officially record a vote of the board to authorize PMP Associates to do that work as a self-certification process for the applicant. And although it wasn't discussed in detail, my assumption is that the applicant would pay PMP directly for that work. So we wouldn't be billing through an engineering account in the town. Now, if we need to clarify that further, we will, but that was my understanding from the discussion we had.
Yes.
So I'll leave it open to the board to either ask questions or whatever. I know the informal feedback that we got from John Haynes that given the current developer, who, as I said, I think we're now in phase 7 or something like that. We haven't had any issues up until this point, and that's a period of in excess of 20 years. I would say, in general, the same is true of the engineering firm involved and the principals involved at the engineering firm, so at that, I'll leave it to the board
I think that's, part of it. I think that, in the time that I've sat here, certainly any time that PNP has come before us, they've been, well-prepared and, make strong presentation. They're a local firm. If something were to go amiss where they, were to favor the interests of the developer over the, the rights or interests of the town, then I'm sure that, future appearances by PMP before this board would be a little more difficult for them. So I don't think that they would, certainly go in that direction. And the other thing, as you say, is that this is a subdivision that's been growing over the course of, some years. And I think that for environmental partners to come up to speed on it would be, not only costly, but time-consuming and probably unnecessarily so. So I wouldn't have any problem with it under these circumstances.
So given that, can I take that as a motion to
Sure.
authorize?
Yep.
All right, do we have a second to that?
Second.
So that's a motion, Riley, second Ken. The only condition which I mentioned in the track meeting was that that'll require that both the DPW and the planning board have open access to go in and look at what's going on, just to keep an eye on things, if you will.
Oh, absolutely, and I think the first thing to do, Roy, assuming the vote taken tonight, would be to set up a pre-construction meeting, probably with the track meeting, and establish, like I talked about, establish a contact list, so we can set that up and get everything prepared ahead of time. So when we're ready to move, we can notify everybody knows what's going on, everybody can get a copy of the reports we're doing, and like you say, DPW, conservation, whoever can have open access to the site.
So I think I overlooked, but can you, just for the record, can you give us your name and who you
Sorry,
represent?
Patrick Carrara from PMP Associates.
Thank you, Patrick.
I think the other condition might be just that we would reserve the right to go in a different direction if need be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that would have to be a condition that if we find any significant problem, that we reserve the right to change that vote and, use EP to finish up if, and I don't expect that would happen, but
Right.
Kevin's
Yeah,
right, we
just-
should have that in there as well. All right, any further discussion?
You've been the engineer since the beginning?
What's that?
You've been the engineering firm since the beginning of Tower Heights?
I've been there for 22 years. And PMP before I was even there, so probably close to 30 years now.
Okay, further discussion? No. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll show that as 6 in favor, none opposed. That's a unanimous vote of all regular members present and voting. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your confidence in us. I will get in touch with, setting up that meeting, Roy.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night.
You too.
So a couple of other agenda items before we get back to that special permit. It's come to our attention at some point, and I don't know if we've discussed this previously, but originally we had a meeting scheduled for Monday, June 20th, which would be 2 weeks from tonight. It was brought to our attention a little belatedly, but on the Commonwealth of Massachusetts official holiday calendar for 2022, Juneteenth is listed. And I'm not sure what that is exactly, but Juneteenth happens to fall on Monday, January 20th. So, under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, public boards are not allowed to hold public meetings on state holidays. So that means that our next meeting, which is on the back of the agendas at the end, will be July 18th. If we don't schedule any other meetings in between, will be July 18th and then August 1st. Since our first meeting in July would have fallen on July 4th anyway, I believe, which is a holiday, and we always, independent of that, we always have single meeting in July and August, based on the amount of business we need to do, so. So we still will have a meeting in July, but it will be July 18th and August 1st, which does come, that is what's on our current schedule anyway, so. But, point to make again is that from tonight, June 6th, we will not have a meeting scheduled until July 18th. Given our current workload, that appears to be okay. Given the other things that would have to be legally advertised, there isn't anything that could happen between now and then that would have to be done other than signing Form A plans, which we have a way to do outside the meeting anyway, so. So I guess basically that covers everything on the agenda outside of getting back to the special permit. We'll leave those last two items on the agenda because there's not an awful lot we can do about those tonight anyway. Oh, was that something else?
We have somebody in the audience, I don't know what they're here for.
I'm gonna ask if there's anyone in the room here that has any questions for the board, feel free.
I do.
Do we have a name, please?
I'm Nancy DeChambeau, 448 Bedford Street.
Okay,
On February 7th, the planning board all voted on a law for land that's been used in a notorious and obvious fashion for over 20 years. Goes to the people that have been using it, or what do you want to say, mowing it, taking care of it for the last 20 years.
so adverse possession has been,
It's not an adverse possession because this has been like that ever since I have lived
So-
on.
that's what it's
440.
legally called in Massachusetts?
But you did a thing in February 7th, the whole board voted on a law that you put through that any land used in a obvious and notorious fashion for over 20 years. I have it on video on my phone. You must all remember voting on that, right? February 7th, I mean, come on. You don't remember voting on it?
No,
So should I have to pull it up on my phone so we can listen to it?
no, we'd have to go by our minutes,
By your minutes what?
minutes of the meeting.
Well, nobody remembers voting on this, huh? Isn't that convenient, huh?
Help us with a little bit more of a description. I mean, I don't know what
You
you're,
were doing, I don't,
we can't vote on, we can't authorize adverse possession. That's a matter of
that
judicial.
wasn't adverse possession, it was a meeting that you had on February 7th, and he was doing his paperwork, and he came up and he just said, any land, you know, a parcel of land that's used in an open and notorious fashion for over 20 years is the landowner's.
Still not,
You know, well,
Clear enough.
then I'm gonna have to bring it up on my phone so we can all
That does
listen to
nothing
it.
for us, because that doesn't have any legal
It was
standing in our
February
minutes.
7th this year?
Yes, February 7th, 2022, and everybody voted, raised their hand and voted on it. One gentleman over here in the corner did have a question, and then you still all voted on it. It was about parcels of land that you needed to put organized or something.
Well, that's what we were talking
For
about,
Daisy Lane or,
street acceptances. That was part of the discussion
Oh,
of
yeah.
the law that the selectmen wanted to pass through local town bylaw.
that just got approved in article
It has
fashion
to-
at the town
it's,
meeting.
What do we call that?
Unaccepted streets.
A local, yeah, local option.
ordinance, local.
We have to get that approved through special legislation at the State House.
Yeah.
that's not what you said the night of the meeting. Because
Well,
someone
I can
questioned
assure
you and you didn't say
I can assure
that.
you that is what we said.
Well, I'm.
That's what the agenda
The
item
agenda
is, and that's
item.
what we voted on.
Yep. So I have lived next to property that has been used and mowed for over 30 years. Mr. Buckland was the first person.
All right, so we need to, I explained to you when I talked to you on the
You
phone,
explained, the first time we talked, you told me that everything I said to you was true. You pulled
which is
up the
correct,
land.
which is correct.
It's worth $6,000. She hasn't paid any taxes on it. It's been abandoned for 30 years. It has been abandoned.
And I explained to
We
you,
had to take care of it because if we didn't, we would get critters. When did you
I
explain?
explained to you what you needed to do was to get an attorney.
No, you did not. The first phone call we had, I even sent out text messages and everything. I have the dates and everything. It's when you came back to the town hall and found out I was the lady from the meeting the night before is what changed your mind.
All right, we're done with
Because
this.
you were very,
We're done
you were
with this
very
discussion.
adamant with me on our first phone call that that land was not to be sold and that it wasn't worth any money. And you told me that the sign was coming down today. That day, you didn't even know it was up for sale. But you knew the land I was talking about, and you pulled it up on your phone while we were on the phone, and you told me all the
Sitting
information.
at my computer while we were on the phone, and I looked at the parcel of land.
Yes, you did, and you agreed with me that that land cannot be sold.
That's not what I said.
Yes, it is what you said,
What I
because I
said is.
texted everybody what you said.
What I said was, after I looked at that parcel of land on the assessor's map, when I looked at that parcel of land on the assessor's map, I said that that's a parcel of land that had been deemed non-buildable because it wouldn't perk for a Title V septic system. And that land cannot be used for any use unless it can be perked for a Title V septic system, according to an action by the building inspector taken 20 or 30 years ago. My understanding is they have actually perked that land, or are still trying to perk that land, and the gentleman bought it with the risk of knowing he may not be able to use it for anything.
No,
All right,
that's not what you said to me on the phone. You were very adamant, and you knew the land I was talking about.
exactly
And
knew
when
it,
my
and-
next neighbor bought the land, he was told the same thing, that that land can never be sold.
That's not, all land.
We've
can-
been taking
all-
care of it for,
excuse
we've
me,
paid more in
excuse me.
gas.
All land can always be sold. All land in the state of Massachusetts can always be sold, unless it's land donated to the town with a deeded restriction on it
What
to
did
the
you
town.
vote on
All
February
land,
7th?
all land can be sold in the state of Massachusetts. We were voting on subdivisions that had been developed over 20 years ago, whose roadway had not been accepted by the town.
And this land has
That's-
been used for.
that's what we were
You even
there are
said,
two-
any neighbors using the land, and you told me on the phone. You knew exactly what I was talking about, and now something happened, and now you've changed your mind, and you even giggled at me on our second phone call, and you said, and have a nice day. You knew what you were doing, and I know what you were doing.
Well, that's fine. You can
No,
think.
it's not fine,
you can
because
think what you
you're doing
wanna
this
think.
against the law. You all voted on this
No, we did not.
thing.
We didn't.
No, we did
didn't.
not.
We voted on a
mixing
home
and
rule
matching
petition to
things
get
here.
unaccepted roads accepted.
There were
It
two
has nothing to
totally
do with
different
parcels
things.
of land.
Nothing to do
Said
with what you're
any
talking
Totally
land
different
used,
things.
Any land used, and this land has always been known for that.
So,
It had nothing to
so,
do with a piece of land that wasn't a subdivision
And why
under
did you tell me
subdivision.
that at first? And you even agreed, I even told you about the video I had on the phone, and you agreed with me. Dude, they don't tape your phone calls up here?
I don't want to be misquoted any further, so we're done with this discussion. If you want
Yeah,
to,
but this isn't right. You guys,
but.
it's land
just
that has
time
been
out,
used
time
for
out, time
over
out.
20
So,
years.
that's fine. So that, number one, that has nothing to do, as Rob just said, that has nothing to do with what we voted on February 7th. What we voted on February 7th
Was
had to
any
do with
land
other,
used in
no,
an
no,
obvious
no, 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 no.
fashion?
Other
Stop.
stuff that had to do with other
Roads. Roads,
land,
not parcels
other
of land.
streets and ways in the
Roads.
town.
You s-
What you may be talking about, you potentially, maybe you have a claim for rights by way of adverse possession. That's not something that you establish here. That's not something that we can take away from you, okay? That's something you would have to pursue through the courts and establish that.
That's not what Mr.
Well,
Gardner told me on our
none of us have
phone
any
call.
knowledge of what Mr. Gardner may or may not have said.
well, that is what Mr. Gardner told her several times, but independent of that,
Right, so, I mean,
So I just wanna know what's changed in 30, 35 years to make this land all of a sudden sellable and buildable. I wanna know what's changed.
We don't know that because nothing's come to us yet.
Yes, but you told me that land shouldn't be up for sale, the sign should come down.
What I told
It's been
you,
taken care of by everybody knows that land, and that we've always, everybody, Mr. Buckland, Mark, the man that has it now, has mowed it for 15 years. This has been going on with this property. I have pictures of my husband mowing it in the 90s. And it's been abandoned. Any abandoned land is what you said in that thing on,
that's not what I said.
yes, it is.
What I said is you would have a strong case.
No, you
for
did not.
All right,
Then
We're
we're
done.
gonna have
We're
to
done.
get the video for the next meeting that you have, and we
so I
can
can
all listen
entertain,
to it
I'll
together.
entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, are we gonna make a decision on the special permit?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's get back to the special permit. Do we
You're
have,
supposed to, this planning board is supposed to be here for the residents, and I've been a resident my whole life here, and I've lived there for 30 years.
we have no
The deer
jurisdiction to
live
do
there.
anything.
That land, the deer, and all the animals out of the wild occupy that land. We keep it clean, we keep it mowed.
so ma'am,
And we have
honestly,
for over
honestly,
30 years.
with respect to that, okay, I absolutely respect the fact of you saying that, and I absolutely believe the fact that you've done that. However, the way that you proceed is, you really do need to contact, and I don't say this because I'm an attorney, but you do need to contact an attorney and see what your rights are relative to that parcel. You may have some
Gardner
rights.
told me what
Mr.
my rights
Gardner,
were on the phone.
The last time we talked, I told you at least 4 times before I ended that discussion that you needed to talk to an attorney.
Yep.
At least
Somebody who's
4
familiar with-
times,
Second one.
at least, yes.
After you found
least-
out that I was the lady at the meeting.
I knew you were the
That
lady
you
at the
flicked
meeting.
me, no, you did not.
Yes, I
And you
did.
flicked me away at that meeting after I told you my daughter almost got killed on Route 18, and you didn't, none of you even cared. You just wanted to get rid of me. And so now I went to the meeting, and all of a sudden that land can be sold. And I even got a phone call from someone on a board here on my answering machine too, after I went to that meeting. So, I don't know what's going on here, but that land at 426 Bedford Street has always been that way, and everybody knows it.
That has nothing to do with the planning board. It has nothing to do with the planning board.
You made a law on the planning board.
we did not.
No, we don't
No.
make laws.
Yes, I have it on video.
You can
Well, the
play, we
planning-
didn't
the
make a
plan-
law.
the
We
planning
can't make
board-
laws.
Somebody said, are we gonna have this voted by the town? And you said, no, we don't have to.
That agenda item had to do with subdivision roads in town that are privately owned, that haven't been accepted by the town because we didn't have as-built plans.
It's the same as
We-
abandoned property.
No, it's
with
not.
No, it's
that
not.
it's
It's
not.
not even close.
Nope, it's not.
Not even close.
You need a
And
lawyer.
why has that
Two
always
totally
been like
separate
that for
things.
years? And now it's changed.
That's not planning board business.
What was your business not too long ago when you told me everything I needed to know? You were more than happy to say that cannot be sold to me on the phone. I texted people what you said to me.
With
I
all due
never
respect,
said it
I don't
can't be
think that
sold.
Mr. Gardner would say that anything can't be sold, because as he just said a few minutes ago,
Anything
anything
can
can
be
be
He said
sold.
to me on the phone. He said the sign would be coming down today, is
What
what
I
you
said
told
is
me.
it can't be developed unless they get permits and a Title V
Difference between
through the
sell and
town to
develop.
develop it.
It
those
never
are two-
perked before, so
those are-
why would it perk now?
Because Title V keeps changing.
Yeah, don't we, everything around here keeps changing.
That's a question for the
That's
Board
a
of
state
Health.
law. That's not a town law. Title V is a state law that's handled by the Board of Health.
And that's wetlands over there, right?
That's Conservation Commission. That's not Planning Board.
So the planning board deals with what you do on the land. So what you're
I
talking about.
understand that,
what
but
you're-
if
but-
you watch that
I
vote,
understand. Let me just clarify for 1 second. So what you're talking about is ownership of the land, and the planning board has no jurisdiction over the ownership of the land. So what Mr. Riley is talking about how land title works, you really need to talk to an attorney about, if you think you have rights to that land, the proper way to go about it,
Because you've maintained it over all of that time.
because you maintained it.
Everybody has known that in town, and
Well,
it's always
that's-
been
right.
said.
But you
that,
just,
so-
it's not, I'm sorry
So
to
there-
interrupt you,
so
but
there's
that
a-
doesn't, you know, it's.
So in order to get ownership rights,
Yep.
there's a process you go
Okay,
through.
that's not
It
what
does-
you told me on the first phone call.
I understand, but it doesn't,
And the man buying the land has been to my house threatening us, so I hope that isn't gonna continue.
so this planning board has no jurisdiction over those type of issues. What we have jurisdiction over is how you use land and how you build on the land and how it interacts with the roads and the public safety. So, you know, you may or may not have a claim. What we would recommend is that you talk to an attorney to figure out what the next steps are, because this planning board has no
But
way.
he assured me on the phone.
So what Mr. Gardner might have talked to you about has nothing to do with what's going on here at this planning board. Honestly, like, I have your best interest at heart, at
No,
like
you
what
don't.
you should be
Because
doing.
if it would be
and-
one of your neighbors, this would be going a different way.
No, if it were one of my neighbors, I would be saying the same thing, or if it
Okay.
were myself.
That's not what
that-
he told me the first day
that
on the
The way you
phone.
deal with the ownership of land really needs to go through the land courts and through the way that, you know, getting legal advice on the property rights. It really doesn't happen here. We're not trying to do anything that compromises what you might be looking for. We just don't have the jurisdiction for that.
You seem to have the jurisdiction the night you made the law, and when I talked to him on the phone.
That was a separate issue. So what that was an issue of is when somebody is trying to develop, to take a bunch of property, right, a bunch of lots and
Yeah, I
pull.
understand what you're talking about, but I'm talking about what he answered me on the phone. He had no
So,
problem
this
coming right
planning
up and
board-
saying,
this
this
planning
land
board was
cannot
not on
be
the
sold,
phone
the
and-
sign will be coming down today.
With all
You
due,
told me
with
that.
all due respect, your issue is not with the planning board.
Okay. Thank you for having the best interest of your residents always at heart.
Okay, back to the issue at hand in the last item that we have on the agenda for tonight, and that is pending special permit application for KMA Real Estate Management for used car sales, including potentially 2 cars for sale and 2 spaces for parking for the parcel owned by PMA Real Estate Management LLC at 60 Franklin Street. This would be a modification. There's an existing special permit for that site. I think as we've said before, does everyone have copies of this already, Dot, or is this?
No. That's why I left it there, because we didn't know if we were making a decision tonight.
Okay.
So I'd ask this question, this is what I struggle with. K2E says, special permit allowed use, any other commercial use which the planning board may determine to be similar to a defined allowed use, and in keeping with the nature and intent of the district. To me, K1A through F, there's nothing there that's remotely close to a used car operation. I don't know how other people feel about that, but I don't see the connection. It's a difficult site. Somebody help me with that question.
So I struggle with the conflict, you know, the site plan design of the safety in which you would have people looking at the cars and, you know, circulating. You have actually like 3 lanes that all converge in one place, plus a lane that goes around, 2-way. Of just the concentration of uses in that corner of the site and the conflicts of pedestrians and vehicles, I find problematic.
I mean, part of me says that 60 Franklin Street is a C-store with accessory fuel and food. That's what it is. I get the reality of the building. There is this space in the back. So part of me says that the only thing that should be used for is an expansion of the C-store, other food uses, something along those lines. There's obviously a history of some other business use back there. You know, again, I can, what's being proposed is a very modest use, I think. But the other part of it, to me, is, I look at the bylaw and I say, how is that similar to anything that's defined in the bylaw? I don't see that.
What's defined?
How a used car, if you look at A through F in the bylaw, you're talking about enclosed manufacturing, exterior storage and accessory uses that's fenced in, sand and gravel, loam removal, agriculture, horticulture, research, office buildings. Boom. How does used car sales fit in there? That's what I struggle with, to get past that. If you get past that, I'm sure you could probably craft something that, you know, was relatively benign, but I get past that, and I mean, I think that, you know, how sort of generous the board should be in terms of interpretation, shall we say, thinking of the future, you know.
So would it be your opinion that it was a stretch to get a automotive repair service in that building? And this is even further stretch?
What do you mean when you say automotive?
And it was the automotive service that's there now, or was there, operating. Was that appropriate use for that?
I mean, honestly, I voted against the special permit for the drive-through 2 years ago, specifically because I didn't think, you know, I thought that there was too much going on this site, and like, you know, what Christine is saying. And probably, yes, Rob, I would say that. I mean, there was an electrician in there, electrical business, I think, at the time. And I think, if I can remember back correctly, I mean, I remember you receiving communications from tenants shortly after the decision was granted, saying, you know, what the heck is going on here? We're having to come in and out our front door through, you know, drive-through lanes. So, you know, I guess if you're gonna say that you wanna allow the back use of the building, then, like I said, this is a fairly benign use, but it is not, I don't know where it fits, I guess. So I'm kinda straddling that fence.
All right, so
What do you think, sir?
So let me, some past history on the whole automotive use thing, the way our bylaws are written. That if you look at all of our bylaws and put them into context and put all of the business and industrial zone, all the commercial zones together, we have very similar wording for 2 of the business zones as in the industrial zone, while we don't specifically prohibit automotive uses. So
Yep.
in the past, we've always considered that means that by special permit, we can allow them. Because we don't have any place where they're expressly defined as either permitted uses or special permitted uses. They always fall under that category that any other commercial use paragraph that appears in most of the business zones and in the industrial zone. So we have nowhere specifically that identifies where you can locate them. It's always been done by special permit through the planning board. There has been 2 automotive-related uses, not sales per se, but because the building directly behind that at 25 Industrial Way, I believe, if I remember that plan correctly that we looked at previously. Yes. 25 Industrial Way, that is actually, they do lots of auto repair there.
Which in my, suspicious mind was the reason that 25 Industrial Drive was included in the application, but it wasn't actually. It was sort of
In any case,
not by the applicant.
if you want a clear answer that says it fits there based on our zoning bylaw, the way it's worded, I can't give you that, because our zoning bylaw isn't real clear on automotive uses. What we try and do, for better or for worse, and have always done, always being the time I've been on the planning board, is basically allowed the selectmen to handle that. Because virtually all of those automotive uses associated with sales of automobiles require a license issued by the Board of Selectmen.
Sure.
So we've tried to jointly, between us and the Board of Selectmen, handle the special permits as well as the licenses jointly in this case, so. And the selectmen acknowledge, for better or for worse, the selectmen, provided that the applicant can meet the requirements for a license, have typically issued the small licenses. There's actually one, in some ways virtually, actually 2, in some ways very similar to this, that both of those licenses actually got a 10 by 10 garden shed from the garden shed manufacturer and put them on the lot, and that's their office and their address. And they have 2 to 4 or 5 used cars that they can sell from those sites. This is actually very similar to another one that we had looked at a potential site plan approval for recently.
Mhm.
We've always viewed the gating item there as whether the selectmen would issue that license or not. I'm not gonna debate the intensity at this site is a little bit overwhelming. Especially true if you go down there and sit there for a morning from starting at about 6:30 and sit there till about 9 and watch the traffic there. It's a pretty abysmal traffic situation, but other than that, I can't say. What I had thought after thinking this through and looking at that were, if we were to grant it, I think I would want to put a condition on there that required that the handicapped spaces be moved to the closest spaces to the front of the walkway at the front of the store where that door is. And that the ramp that's where it's currently shown, which is on a blind wall, clearly doesn't meet ADA standards and clearly never did. I'm not sure exactly how they ended up there. Because I don't believe there's the entrance to the store is in the front. And there is another door over in front of that section that's the donut shop portion, if you want to call it that.
So the pizza place, you obviously went into the convenience store to go and get pizza,
Yes.
right? And this is proposing to change that, or is it
Well,
just they're swapping out the signage?
I'm not exactly sure, but the pizza shop hasn't been there for a while now, right?
Correct. Pizza place is no longer.
And the convenience store, from the last time I was in, they just expanded. The pizza store is just gone completely.
Mhm.
But my thought would be if we were to grant this, and I agree after looking at this multiple times, where you've got the drive-through lane, you've got a bypass lane, which if people are stuck in the drive-through lane and realize it's gonna take too long before they can go around, which is a requirement today of most drive-throughs. All of the chain restaurants have a bypass way to get around. But would be to take those 4 spaces, put them where, I think they originally were over here, but there was a discussion that would interfere with the designated handicap space. Those spaces, this spot here, that should be the ramp that goes up, if they need a ramp to get up. and the handicap spaces should be the nearest four to the front where the door is. Those still don't meet, I don't believe, ADA compliant anymore, because that wouldn't be close enough to the door.
What I would say is that the employee parking should be more remote and not in the front here. And that it's possibly, employees park over here, possibly back here. But that they should, from a development point of view, I would be looking at this to look for an entry here that services this location.
Problem though, being there, I think from the last time, do I remember? Yeah, generator is right on that wall, which I think is the
Is the issue.
issue there to try to access, because I think we talked about why you couldn't,
So then why couldn't it be
Right.
closer up towards the,
But he had said there wouldn't be cars parked there regularly, they'd only be there when the guy came in to pick them up.
so I'm not thinking about like where the cars are parked. I guess what I'm thinking about is like how a person might come and find the office and be safely go and talk to people and then they could be walked over to where the cars are parked. But, this corner area with this drive lane, the two other lanes, and
Lot
then
going on
this
there.
going back and forth, it's just a high intensity, conflict use that you could just imagine, that it's not the most safe way. And if we were to do that, we'd have to look into sidewalks or like, another walkway that goes over there to safely manage that business piece of it. Just from my perspective, when I look at trying to figure out the best.
Well, there's currently a barrier there as well.
Right, and there's the barrier and there's like bollards right there in front. It's
Yes.
just not an idea, it's not, I know that there's an existing door there, but from a development point of view,
Yeah.
what I
nobody would ever build that,
like when I look at redeveloping a location and you want, the way you want the pedestrian access or the access for the business for the long term, you would look at flipping it to the other side.
I mean, and part of me says,
Having some synergy with the people parking that are going into the convenience store, or having their entry through the convenience store in some way.
part of me says when you put the drive-through lane in there, as you did, you committed to making that 60 Franklin Street a convenience store, and that's what it is. And not, you were not respecting that back use as something different, if you know what I'm
Or
saying.
you enter through that
Some-
store
or as you
into
say,
that, like,
flip
it's
something,
as
flip something around or do something. But I mean, there's really no way to sort of mitigate, because you've got your entire traffic flow going around the back of that building and out. It's not as if you can, shunt traffic in
Right.
some different.
So it's not just the 4 spaces where the 4 spaces are put, it's the entry door into the business itself. And I guess I'm open to solutions on that, if it were workable. I just don't completely feel comfortable saying that I would feel comfortable with my daughter going over there, looking to buy a new car, and that there would be no conflicts with people trying to rush through the parking lot.
Right.
Not only on this site, but with the abutter, with the cars backing out of that lot at 25 Industrial.
So then what's your pleasure on the application?
I'd make a motion to continue the matter till the meeting of July 18th at 7:15 PM, maybe for some rethinking of the design or the like by the applicant. I'll throw that out there and see where that goes.
I don't know if you already closed the meeting, but I don't know if I'm not allowed to speak.
Yes, you are,
Okay.
please. Come up, if you would, to the front table, please.
The applicant is amenable to changes, like, as you mentioned, either a crosswalk or a different path to a door, or possibly even relocation of the door. I can't say specifically that they would do that, or that they would be exactly open to maybe switching the door location, but they're definitely amenable, and I would have to discuss with them. But
Because I think
I don't want to propose
I
this
think
as like these are our 4 spots.
any use that might be using that door
Yeah.
for the long-term haul is
Problematic.
probably gonna be, is problematic from my perspective, in agreeing to the switch in use. I think that, you know, a long-term vision needs to include, you know, what's going on inside the building as well as outside, and that connection between the two.
That's completely understandable.
All right, so let's try this then, based on what I'm hearing here. If we were to say we're gonna take those 4 blue spaces and put them at the other side of
Where the
Garage.
generator is, yeah.
where the
Yeah, essentially
generator
where the
is,
generator is.
we require that a door be cut in that wall so that anyone for the used car business can either enter or exit through that door right where those parking spaces are. And the handicap space that gets impacted be moved up to the front. And the ramp that's also required under ADA requirements be in that, what's now shown as the very first parking space at the front walkway. So or maybe the second space if the ramp should be between the two.
I was gonna say, if there's gonna be 2, maybe put the space,
Put the space in the
ramp
middle,
between.
that's more appropriate for the,
And as far as
That's
like,
typically how it's laid out.
as far as the 2 employees that are parking, you know, good retail design would tell you that the employees should be parking not right next to the convenience spaces for the store or anything else, that they should be more
Kind of
remote.
maybe
You know,
group them
you'd-
over
you'd put-
beyond the.
Exactly, you'd put your employees over there,
Yep.
and you'd allow it in a location. I guess those 4 spaces, you know, at the left, it could be there, or it could be in, you know, the other middle aisle. I guess you would have to cooperate with the, you know, talk to the owner in the convenience store to find out what are the most usable spots. What do you need to preserve for your customers to be successful?
okay, so I guess I'm gonna take Kevin's comment as a motion to continue this discussion with a potential modification to the plan in our next meeting, and we had already discussed previously, that next meeting is July 18th, right? Yes. So do we have a second to that?
I'll second it.
You have a motion, Riley, second Lawler, to continue this discussion on the meeting of July 18th. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll call that a unanimous vote of all 6 regular members present and voting. Thank you all. I think at this point, oh,
I have
yes,
a quick question.
yes.
Do we have to make a vote on the meeting for Juneteenth? Because technically, that list was filed with the town clerk's office, and it shows us having a meeting on June 20th. So do we need to make a
So I guess
motion
officially,
to cancel that?
we should make a motion to do that, even though we legally can't have that meeting.
Right.
So, could we have a motion to officially cancel our scheduled meeting of June 18th, so we can notify the town clerk that we did vote to cancel that? So that's a motion, Lawler, do we have a second? Second, Riley. Discussion, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We'll show that it's 6 in favor and none opposed, and the motion to adjourn is appropriate at this point, I believe. We have a motion, Lawler, to adjourn. A second, Ken.
It's the Lawler motion.
Discussion? Discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote. Any nays? No. That's a unanimous vote, 6 in favor, none opposed. We'll call it 8:20 PM. Thank you all.
Thank you.